Hey moms, it's Laura Ollinger. Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. This is part 2 of my conversation with Eric Stenlake, a teen parent and family success coach of Energetic Life Now. Okay, so I have for a long time really loved to talk about the coach approach to parenting. And so that's using coaching methods. And so how can we together, because, you and I trained in the same coaching school and the Neuroencoding Institute. And so what would be your take on, methods or tools, techniques that we can teach the parents of how they could coach their kids?
Oh my gosh, that is such a loaded question. Because you and I know we've got a gazillion, we have a gazillion things that we can use. I'm just going to go into my family and for me personally, if that's okay. I use the stop technique is one of the things that I use, of which as emotions are coming forth, I want to be able to be in control rather than the emotion be in control. And I think this is where kids lose that ability because they don't know how to manage that emotion when it surfaces. And there's not a level of understanding at some points of which they're not realizing why and where that's coming from. And so we've worked through this as a family, and I've worked through this in my own growth and development as a parent and a coach. So as that emotion rises, I start looking at it and go, okay, this emotion is coming up, and so now I'm gonna try to name it if I can. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling scared. So the stop, the S is I'm going to say what that emotion is for me. And so then I identify it. Then I start, okay, well, where is that coming from? Is it a past experience that was negative? Is it something else? Where is that coming from? So I begin to have that level of understanding. These are great conversations that we've had with our kids over the years, by the way, because now they understand when those emotions arise. They can name it. The T of the stop for me is to take a deep breath. Right, breathe in. I'll take that breath in for a good 4 to 6 count. Hold it for a 4 to 6 count, and out for a 4 to 6 count. Right. And I'll do that deep breathing for 3, 4, 5 times maybe. Right. Because what's happening there is getting the blood to get back into the prefrontal cortex, where that's where that thinking and reasoning, executive functions going on, and pulling that blood out of the basal ganglia, which is the emotional center of the brain. When I get really worried, stressed, fear, doubt, all those things, I lose that ability because the blood leaves the prefrontal cortex of the brain, right? So now I've taken that deep breath, and now I begin to look at what the outcomes are. What are the outcomes? What are the opportunities? So STO, what are the outcomes or opportunities? Well, if I'm stressed, nervous, worry, fear, doubt, all of these thieves that are coming in, overwhelmed, the thieves of the dream that are showing up. Now I'm looking at that and going, okay, what do I want here? Well, I want to get this task done, but right now I'm so stressed out about it. I don't know if I can do it. And thinking about your kids, whether they're 3, 5, 9, 15, or older, same thing applies. A 3-year-old's not going to be able to verbalize what they want and thinking about, well, I want to do this. So now I'm going to help and lead and guide them with those questioning. What do you want there? Would you like to do this or would you like to do this? Getting them in the habit of making executive functioning decisions is absolute gold, because they're going to learn how to do that at an early age. And then sooner than later, they're not going to need you, which is fabulous. And let me explain why. They're taking on that role and responsibility of leadership of self, not being in a stage or place of dependency on you as a parent to make all the decisions for them. And that is a beautiful place. Now, once you get to that place of that understanding of what the opportunity is there, now we just simply get to the P, which is the praise. And so I teach my kids, pat yourself on the back, right? Whether you do it physically, I want them to do that, but they're like, "You're so dumb, Dad. You're so dumb. You don't have to reach around and pat yourself in the back," right? I don't know if your kids are going to say the same thing. Right? But they're like, "Dad, I'm not going to do that," right? That's okay. Do it visually in your head. Visualize yourself patting yourself on the back, because that's that praise. Or maybe it's a praise phrase that they're going to say. Like, I can still hear my grandfather in my head saying, "Great job. Way to go, champ." Because he used to call me champ. And so I'll say that in my head, "Way to go, champ." And that's my pat on the back. Right. Another thing is, as those emotions come up, and I'm going to name it, then another thing I do with that is I ask myself, is it true?
Right.
And so that is a beautiful thing to do. And so I just taught you the neuroencoding technique for the stop technique. And there's a great book here. I think this is backwards, but it's Conquer Your Negative Thoughts by Dr. Daniel Amen. And he's one of our master coaches. And this is all on the ants, the automatic negative thoughts. And so if those automatic negative thoughts are popping up, I want to ask myself, is that thought true? Meaning is, I hate this. Why do I have to do this? I hate that. Or I'm never going to be able to do that. Or this, I'm always this, or you're always that. Is that really true? Because in there, it explains all the different ants. And I need to have that awareness and understanding. Is it always like that? Or was this an isolated incident? Right. And so having that understanding of that is really, really critical for the kids in their decision-making process, and for us as well. So when I teach people that, or when we teach people this, in these tools and techniques, they're set up in a way of which there's ownership happening in how I'm thinking and I'm feeling. And when I can continually align the head brain and the heart brain on this, then the action that I take is going to be aligned for success, because I've learned how to navigate through those situations of that emotional connection or what I'm thinking, and challenging the validity of those thoughts. And that has really, really served myself and our family well.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And so let's review it one more time. So the S is for
saying what the emotion is.
Got it. That was the one I didn't write down, but you've taught me this many times. So.
Yeah, the naming of it.
Got it.
I'm mad. I'm so angry.
Yeah, say it. And then T is take a deep breath. O is for outcomes or opportunities, which is what you want. And then P is for praise. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was awesome. I think that's such a great thing for parents to learn. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is, kind of explain how coaching even works. So what coaching really is a series of questions that you ask whoever you're coaching, and in this case, it's your kids, to help them come up with their own solutions or their own answers to things. And a lot of times where I think that could go wrong is the parents are trying to run their own agenda and the teenager has their own agenda. So the parent is trying to ask a question or tell the teenager, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. However, it's not allowing the teenager to come to their own conclusion, their own solution, their own result. And so the thing is that parents have a hard time, I think, respecting what the teenager wants and realizing that we don't really have that much of a say in what our teenager is doing. We can, like you're saying, guide them, coach them, support them. But at the end of the day, the teenager has to be the one to make the choice we can't, as we all know, we cannot force our kids to do anything once they're big, right? Like when they're little,
Yeah,
maybe,
100%.
right? But when
100%.
they're bigger, we can't force them unless it's through some type of threat or coercion, which is terrible parenting. So don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 So I think it comes down, and I've noticed this over the years with my own kids, is coming from a place of authenticity in the heart. I can ask the questions and lead in the place that I know that they should go,
Right.
but not from a manipulative standpoint.
Exactly. That's the
If
nuance.
it's if it's coming from that that place of authenticity, then that really shows when in those conversations with the kids, right? And and so it's if something's going on, well, what would you like to do? How would you like to handle this?
Mm-hmm.
Is what I always ask them. And
Mm-hmm.
I am hoping that they'll come up with an answer. And I'll say, you know what, that's great. You can do this. I have a couple ideas. Are you open to hearing them?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it okay if I share them with you?
Mm-hmm.
There are times of which they will say, yeah, sure, go ahead. And there's times of which they flat out say no.
Right.
That's not easy because I'm looking at my options going, that's the one they need to choose.
Yes. Right.
And so I'm going to go, okay, great. You want to try that? Go do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll check back with you and see, what the outcome was.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get what you wanted?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at that stop technique, what's the outcome of opportunities? Did you get there?
Mm-hmm.
If it worked, fantastic. That's your way of doing it. That's great. Now I've learned something about you
Right.
as a child. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know how to better serve you from the parent or coach perspective in the future. If it didn't work out, now I'm going to say, okay, well, can I share some ideas with you?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I've shifted from that parent and coach role, and it just keeps intertwining in that serves really, really well in those situations, is to get them to align with the agreement of where their starting point is.
Mm-hmm.
They will be more apt to move forward on this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, listen, from the parent coach perspective, there are times when my kids have made some really ding dong choices, and I'm like, for the love of Pete, I know this isn't going to work. They had to discover that.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly.
They had to discover that, because if I'm making all the decisions for them,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to grow. They're not going to understand that self-awareness. So in the next situation, they're going to be scared to make a mistake. Whereas I say, you know what? Don't worry about it. It didn't work out. It's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, aren't I going to get in trouble? No. Right? So let me give you a couple of examples. My daughter was in middle school. She didn't get up in time to make her lunch because I'm not making lunch. I'm not going to go to school and eat it with her. So it's your lunch. If you want to take lunch, you make your lunch and go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And she walked out the door because in middle school, she would spend an hour or so with her hair in the morning, because it's such a social place of which you have to look absolutely perfect in middle school. High schools, soccer hair don't care, and she can just throw it up in a bun and go.
Mm-hmm.
And she walked out the door, and I said, well, there's going to be consequences for you not having a lunch today. She went out the door. She came back in after school. How was school today? Oh, it was so terrible. And she just bust out crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, and she, why? She's like, I'm so hungry. I couldn't concentrate. I did it. And all because it was all based around not having proper nutrition for herself,
Mm-hmm.
feeding her brain and her body fuel to navigate through her day. And then she said, what's my consequence? I said, what are you talking about? She said, you said there was going to be consequences. Am I grounded? Do I have to give you my phone? And I said, oh, you thought you were in trouble for this? I said, what were your natural consequences today?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I fell asleep. I did this. I couldn't concentrate. So, in other words, you just wasted a whole day at school. Now you are going to have to go back and review all of this work. Do you understand the importance of having yourself properly, proper nutrition and hydration for your day?
Mhm.
Then she's got to admit, yeah, Dad, you're right.
Mhm.
Great. Now I'm assuming that you're starving right now. Yes, let's go in the kitchen and make something to eat.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now she learned that lesson, and now I'm going to wrap my arms of love around her, if you will,
Mhm.
give her food to get her through until dinner. And that was a learning experience that she had to go through for herself.
Right.
I could have thrown stuff together, taken it down to the school, left it in the office, texted her your lunch is in the office. But what is she going to learn from that? She's not. So
Mhm.
even though in these situations, parents, it might be tough, and you're like, well, my precious has to eat today. Well, yeah, they do, and they're going to eat eventually. But
Mhm.
what lesson are they going to pick up? A life lesson, not your lesson, a life lesson for them,
Mhm.
which is key on that. You know,
Right.
and I can go back through to when they were younger, as toddlers, life lessons that they learned how to navigate through, because they would end up getting the results that they wanted to get.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it reminds me of the expression, the goal is to work yourself out of a job.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you're doing your best, you're doing a great job if they, are learning along the way so that when they're ready to be independent, they have all those skills, those life skills. The other thing that I like to kind of share with parents is, that same kind of line of natural consequences, but
Hmm.
it doesn't always work the first time,
Yeah.
right? So what you just
Yeah.
said was your daughter, maybe the very next day, she's like on it, she's making her lunch. But
Hmm.
sometimes it takes a long time. And the key is to kind of like keep some patience going for the situation. So,
100%.
it might be an example of I have a friend whose daughter was a senior last year, and she was staying up so late doing her homework. And my friend would always say, you need to go to bed. Why aren't you going to bed? It's getting so late. You're going to be so tired tomorrow. And it just kept going and going and going. And so I suggested, well, what if you just asked her a question instead? And she's like, okay,
Hmm.
what do I ask her? And I said, you could be a couple things, but you could say, what is your plan for this evening?
Hmm.
What is your plan for finishing your homework? Or what is your idea for when you'd like to get to bed?
Right.
And that forced the daughter to come up with a solution, because it's almost like the daughter was just on autopilot. All the daughter knew was that she had to do her homework. And then she just didn't finish until 2 a.m. and she was tired the next day. And so
Hmm.
by
Hmm.
asking the question, what is your plan for this evening, getting your homework done? And what is your goal for getting to bed? It
Yeah.
forced the daughter to then think of her own solution and then also verbalize, oh, well, I have this, this, and this. It's going to take a long time, but I think if I do it, I can get to bed by midnight, right? But
Yeah.
it took it took time, right? Like this wasn't just an overnight, no pun intended, like an overnight solution.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
took a little time, and it took the daughter realizing, wow, I really am tired, but it took time. And so that's
Hmm.
the other kind of part of it, is just to, they'll figure it out. Like when they're falling asleep in class, they think, gosh, what can I do to not feel this way, not feel so exhausted? And then they're like, oh, it's because my mom keeps asking me when I'm going to go to bed. Maybe I need to have a better answer for that. Right. And then they figure it out.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, because I mean, really, after what, the 30th time that you say you're going to be tired tomorrow, you don't do it, they're not hearing it.
Right.
They're not hearing it. It's going right past them because they've heard that.
Mm-hmm.
When you come authentically into that space of support, what is it? What does your night look like? Is there anything I can do for you?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you need? Right? Um, is that's always served well for me, because they're making the call, they're making those choices, they're making those decisions. And if there's adjustments along the way, certainly I will jump in there and say, are you open for a suggestion here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or
Right?
I love the question, how can I support you? How can I
Yeah.
best support you.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter, she will do her homework kind of by herself a lot of the times, but sometimes she's like, Mom, can you just sit by me? Or can you just sit with me? Like, that's all she wants. And so I said, well, you come here in the kitchen so I can finish what I'm doing. And then it's kind of a win-win, right? It's, she has that company. She likes to have that just kind of feeling connected.
Of course.
So she wants to feel close, but she still has to do that. So that kind of works. Okay. So last closing thoughts before we wind down. Okay. Where can people find you going forward?
Oh, sure. I am on social media, of course, Energetic Life Now. And that's on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. My website is energeticlifenow.com. It should be up here in the next week. I'm so excited because this has been a work in progress and we're just about there. So feel free to reach out, connect. Would love to meet you guys, and anything that I could do to support you. Feel free to just reach out with questions or comments. Anything that I can do, here for you.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. And as always, I can be found on the positivelyhealthymom.com or the positivelyhealthycoaching.com. Thank you for listening to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast, because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.